Hello and welcome to the Success Energy Show episode today. And I have a very special guest with me today. That's Jennifer Kauffman, a friend of mine, and she is an inspirational speaker, best-selling author of the book Shattered, and a trauma survivor. She's also a results coach professionally, but today we will be focusing on her great journey that started, I think, at the time when she was born and escalated in 2013 when she found herself at Boston Marathon in the middle of a terrorist attack. And she has healed herself naturally through holistic wellness practices, coming out a more resilient person than she ever was. So, welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience today.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So, Jennifer, as we were talking a while back, tell me a little bit about your journey from 2013 up to now.
Yeah, so in
Your
2000,
growth as a human being.
yeah, as
Maybe
in 2013 was a really pivotal year for me on a couple of fronts. I had come off my best year in business in 2012, um, and having helped many businesses create breakthroughs for themselves and their families. And I had taken a month sabbatical and spent some time with some of my mentors at a spa retreat in Arizona. And I had taken the leap of faith. I had been wanting to write my own book for several years. I attempted to do so and realized I needed help. So I had signed a publishing deal just in March of 2013. So life was really great. Um, and then I had an opportunity to go to the Boston Marathon for the first time. Here's the irony. I'm born in Boston or outside of Boston. I went to school in Boston, both undergrad and graduate school, and I worked in Boston for years. I had never been to the Boston Marathon and frankly never had a desire to go. Why? I personally am not a long distance runner. I love sports. My idea of running is behind a white ball, a soccer ball, a volleyball. That's my idea of running. And but this year was different. My close friend of mine, her son was running um, for his alumni. He was graduating from med school and was embarking on becoming a doctor. And she does not know her way around the city. So she asked, would you be kind enough to take me to the finish line so I can see my son cross? And I said, absolutely. So we made a day of it. Here's the miracle is that we started out really early in the morning. We went to a mile from the starting line, and we were fortunate enough to see the first disabled runners come by. And in that moment, I was in awe and literally moved to tears because I was so inspired. Here are people that were blind, people that were missing a leg or two legs and running on prosthesis. And I remember seeing military men and women in full fatigues, work boots, and packs doing 26.2 miles of marathon. And I was like, wow, here I had erroneously thought that that wasn't really a sporting event, and yet it was such an inspiring day. And so the day started out great. There was a group of us there. We were able to see um, thousands of runners go by, including my friend's son. And then we ventured into Boston. We stopped and grabbed a bite to eat, and then made our way to the finish line. And fortunately, it was just my friend and I. Members of my family were contemplating going in, and they opted not to. And I'm so grateful now that they chose not to. And my friend's son, Dan, was about a half mile out from the finish line. We were tracking him on our mobile device. And the crowd was completely electrified. Just imagine tens of thousands of people lined on a street that are the happiest you can be, cheering, excited, waiting for their loved ones to come running by. It was awe-inspiring. And then, without any warning, a large explosion went off. And at first, I thought it was a gas explosion because to me, it felt as though the explosion came directly from the building behind me. What I later learned was the the blast was so intense that it reverberated off the building behind me, shattering all the glass in the building, going up multiple floors. Um, but what happened, it, it was surreal. And when I think about it, it's as if I was instantly put into a horror movie. And I remember finding myself on the ground, picking myself up, not really understanding how I got there, because it literally all happened in a moment. And when I was picking myself up off the ground, the crowd that had been cheering just moments before was silent. And I could hear the glass of the shattered glass hitting the sidewalk behind me. And when I looked to my left, I saw things that no human being should ever witness. Um, and then something happened as quickly as kind of all that came about, and I was trying to assimilate what was happening. Another bomb went off. And at this point, I realized we were in the midst of a terrorist attack. My friend at the time who was with me froze, um, which is common, right? It's common when something so traumatic happens. Fortunately, I didn't realize I was injured at the time, and I kicked into gear and basically ensured that we could get ourselves to safety. And so that's how the journey started, actually. Was this glorious day. It was a beautiful day. And then in a matter of a second, my life was completely shattered, literally, on a physical level that I would later learn, ultimately on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level. Now I was left with, I don't understand what is the meaning of life. Here it was, life was really, from my perspective, going really well. And just in the months leading up to this. And then I found myself in a state that I could never imagine. And I want to talk just a little bit about what we're experiencing in now. We're in the midst
Yes.
of a pandemic, which is absolutely traumatic, right?
Yes.
And so, and it brings up a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and for some people, it brings up terror. And so the question is, what do you do? What do you do? And my journey took 4 years to fully recover. Um, we're here talking about holistic wellness. And I'd like to say that, before this experience happened, I had no knowledge of holistic health because I was healthy. I didn't need to understand that. My background is in business and finance. And so, but something happened when I was in the emergency room later that day. In the midst of the chaos that ensued, there was a moment where many of the doctors and nurses had left my hospital room. And that time, I heard a voice inside me say, Jennifer, you need to learn how to heal naturally. And I thought,
Yes.
one, where's this coming from? Two, but I was like, but it was one of those voices, kind of like a parent saying, you know, and so I really was listening intently. And I was equally terrified because I have no knowledge in how to do that. Well, as my stay at the hospital continued, it became more and more chaotic for me. And that experience was traumatic for me. And I want to say I thank the doctors and nurses for all they did. And I know that they did the best that they could. But for me, I was in a state of, I don't know if I'm going to live to see another day. And I don't want to spend my last moments here in a hospital room with complete strangers. So,
Yes.
despite the doctors and nurses, um, strong recommendations that I stay, I released myself in the care of my aunt, who was a nurse practitioner. And that was the journey in my taking the first step, doing something that I didn't know if I would even know how to do, but something inside me nudged me. And that's when I started my journey. And the next thing, people started showing up in my life who would teach me all different kinds of techniques of how we can heal within. It was absolutely remarkable. Again, that was a 4-year journey, but I'm sitting here with you today, 7 years later, and I can honestly say to you, I recovered 100% naturally from an experience that I couldn't even imagine, A, going through, and B, letting alone being able to recover naturally. I never thought it was possible until I was able to achieve it myself. So, for anyone who's listening today, I'm sure some of you are in a state of, okay, my world has just been shattered. This
Yes.
virus has come upon us. You may be experiencing health issues yourself or a loved one, or God forbid, somebody that's near and dear to your heart has passed away, and everybody is impacted on some level financially. And many people don't know what they're going to go back to for work. So what do you do? What I recommend is take some time for solitude. Take some time to reflect inward, because this is an opportunity to really look at your life and say, what is it about my life that I love and I'm passionate about and I want to carry forth? What is it about my life that, you know what? I don't really want to bring that forth in what I do newly. So it's a really great opportunity to create newly. And the way I look at it is, think of it like an artist. You've got a blank canvas now. Unfortunately, you didn't create the blank canvas, it was created for you. And so, but now be the artist of your life and design something that is going to enliven you, and it's going to bring out your best self. Because these experiences can do one of two things. They can either make us better human beings, or they can make us bitter. And the
Absolutely.
way I look at it is, what do I mean by becoming better? Well, for me, I learned how to love myself and others on a much deeper level. I learned what it really meant to be kind and compassionate. Now, let's be clear, I was a kind and compassionate person before, but I'm talking being kind and compassionate to the bombers who placed the bombs, something I never thought I could do. And yet here I was giving an opportunity. I could hate them, and in the beginning I did, but I learned to forgive them, and I learned to, accept them for who they were. Now let's be clear, I wish that, the bombings never happened in some respects. On the other hand, it was a huge opportunity for me to rise up to my best self, and it has afforded me amazing, amazing, you know, possibilities and opportunities I never thought possible.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I now know why you are such an inspirational speaker. In this little piece that you have given us, I think it's the essence of life that you have just put together in a small bundle. And that's so very important for all of us to start realizing. In fact, in the afternoon, I was listening to the news and I was feeling so depressed, so uncomfortable with the situations that are happening all around us, that it was difficult for me to just get up and pull myself and come to the show. Of course, the show was pre-scheduled, so we had to do it, and I had to rise up and just do it. And I am so glad I did it. In fact, this whole Success Energy show started just last month. I jumped into doing it without much of preparation, and as I decided to do it, all the tools, all the mentors, all the knowledge that I needed to actually run a successful show just came into my life. And all the featured guests who add so much of value to the show, they also came along with it. It
And
was just wonderful. As I was reading your book, I saw that little piece over there where you say, make a decision, and
Mhm.
things start to happen thereafter. Just
It
over to you.
starts with us, and that's the key point, right? Is that, you know, life doesn't happen to us. Life happens for us. And here's the key. The minute you take the first step, that's when the universe, God, whomever you choose to believe in from a divine standpoint, will meet you with the right people and the right opportunities to take you to the next step. You know, it never works as it's all laid out for you and then you can go. No. You know, we get these nudges of intuition, and it
Yes,
may not make sense, because you're only given a little piece of the big picture. The key is, if it feels right, is to take that first step. And let's be clear, you will feel scared. You will feel fear because it's like this uncertainty. It's like you're walking on this thin rope and you don't know where it's going. But here's the thing, a bird doesn't fear the branch because it knows it has wings to fly. And the truth
yes.
is, that's such a great analogy because we all have that same ability. We all have the ability to thrive. And I feel, that is one of our lessons here is that I believe nobody, nobody in the world needs to suffer and struggle. But here's the key, they've got to take the first step on their journey and rising up from that place to a thriving place. And it starts with each one of us.
Yes, certainly. Jennifer, I was reading through your book, and as uh, that episode or the first chapter came up, I saw the level of intuition that you were having that very day of not really going to the Boston Marathon. It was as if a voice was telling you inside not to go, although you
Mm.
were so interested in going and helping your friend out, be supportive to her in her uh, journey of support to her son. You yourself were feeling a little hesitant. I am so interested in knowing more about intuition because intuition is something which is so hard to understand.
Mm.
It often sounds as if there's a warning from within,
Mhm.
and most of us just don't pay attention to it. Tell us a little bit more about that intuition which you were having that very day and how it has played a role in your life
Well,
subsequently.
I'll speak to that, but I want to take it a step back further, right? So I've
Okay.
now come to realize that there's no mistake, right? So that there are synchronicities that we experience all the time if we're open to them, right? And what do I mean by synchronicities? I just met you. You found me through another talk that I did, and you reached out and asked me to come speak to you live here today. And I'm grateful for that. And when we first met and spoke, there was a connection, right? So there was this connection and this synergy, and we both have a similar interest and mission to help people in the world. So it was natural for us to come together today. So here's the thing, no coincidence that, I would take a month off in late January, early February, just a few months before the bombings would happen, to actually celebrate my previous year, but also rest and recharge. Okay. Now, the irony is, I was drawn to a retreat because of the two mentors, frankly, is why I was drawn to it. But the actual retreat itself was on extreme self care. And I thought to myself, oh, I don't really need to know that. I'm just excited to go spend, a week with these amazing women and 150 other women on this beautiful retreat. Little did I know that seeds would be planted in that retreat that would come back later to help me when I was at my darkest days. So, the morning of the bombings, I woke up feeling very unsettled, and I did not understand why. I had a very unsettling feeling. I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I don't know why, but I have a very unsettling feeling. And for some reason, I don't want to go to Boston today. And my mom said, well, then don't. And I said, I can't let down a friend. I made a promise to her. Um, the only reason why I'm going to the marathon is to be able to help her and so that she can see her son run the race. And I was not about to break my promise, especially on the morning of. But I had no other insight or no other inclination as to what was going to happen
Right.
just hours later. But I did have an instinct, and I will say this, looking back on it, something I want to distinguish here for the viewers. So I had a feeling. My mind said it was irrational because my mind couldn't conceive. There was no threat. There was no imminent danger that was, pre-announced. There was none of that. So my
Even,
mind
even
just
the
kind of,
weather was good. Even the weather was good.
correct, correct.
Sometimes
And
the
so,
weather stops us. Yes.
yeah. And so, listen, I don't regret being there to help my friend. What I'm trying to say here is that sometimes our mind and our hearts or our feelings are not aligned. And when that happens, I urge people and encourage people, trust their feelings, trust their instincts, because
Right.
sometimes your mind cannot conceive what's about to unhappen, unfold. And, just continue to lean in and trust your instincts, even though sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Yes. Trust the instincts is a very strong and very important message. It is something which comes very easily to me as a human being. I've always seen that when a situation happens, I am perhaps many times going against the uh, immediate reaction that others would possibly show. And most of the times, my instincts have been right. Uh, it comes easy to me to trust my instincts, not just because I've had a background experience of this kind, of being right, and I never go about showing off later on saying, see, this is what I said and this is how it came out. But that's just a person I have. But uh, for a lot of my coaching clients, I've seen that somehow, sometimes, they just don't know where their instinct is leading them.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been a results coach. You know how important instinct is in business decision making also.
Absolutely.
Sometimes all the data would be pointing towards something else, and your gut feeling, your instinct, your intuition, whatever you call it,
Mm-hmm.
may be pointing towards something else entirely.
And here's the distinction, right? In business, oftentimes you've got data. Well, where's that data coming from? Historical information, right?
Yes,
And so not, let's be clear about that. That has a value in a role, but it should not be the only thing you look at making a decision because factors and variables change literally moment to moment, right? Our environments. Look at what happened to COVID. Nobody saw this coming and to
yes,
this degree, nobody predicted. Well, let's be clear. People said that at some point in time this would happen, but nobody said exactly when it would happen. And here's the thing, and then when it happened, now what? Right? Most people, my business had altered pretty significantly. I had paid speaking gigs lined up. I had live events scheduled, all of which that had to be delayed indefinitely. So all of a
yes,
sudden, I found my income sources were, we're slipping away. And it's like, okay, now what? And so, we've got to, take a step back and pivot and go, okay, where's the opportunity? And so, fortunately, we live in a digital world, we live in a technology world. So it's like, okay, how can I take the work that I do and bring it online? Now, I am not the most technically astute person. I prefer to be in live events. But like you, I'm embracing, I'm here, today, you know, and is it perfect? No, but it's okay. And it's okay. And that's also another thing for people to recognize is that just continue to take action in the pursuit of your vision You will make mistakes. The key is quickly adjust, pivot again, and keep moving forward. The key is keep your eye on the prize, and that prize is your vision. That prize is your mission. And remember just to do right by yourself and others. Always serve people. And when you do that, you you will end up being fine. I've seen it time and time again.
Yes.
I've coached clients through recessions when, the mainstream media would say that, most businesses are going to fail during this time. Most, people are going to collapse. They're going to go into financial hardship. And yet here I am coaching a bunch of small businesses who are part of that statistic, and not one of them closed their doors. In fact, every single one of them grew, some more than others. But why? Because they weren't focused on the negativity. They weren't focused on what someone else was trying to get them to believe. And it's kind of like now, the narrative is scary. I consider myself a pretty resilient, positive person. And if I spend 5 minutes on a particular station that's promoting nothing but fear and doom and gloom, I can feel my own energy shifting. But
Absolutely.
here's the deal. No one is making me watch that except for me. So
Yes.
I have a choice. And here's the key. It's being disciplined and watching your input. Where are you getting your information from? Is it uplifting? Is it hopeful? Is it inspiring? Yes, unfortunately we have sadness happening. That is a fact. But guess what? In the midst of sadness, there are people that are, finding a way to rise up from COVID. They've been diagnosed and I read a story the other day of a 99-year-old man who had COVID, was in the hospital, and is now back home. That's a miracle.
That's
He
good.
and so the more that we can surround ourselves with people that are uplifting and encouraging and inspiring, and be mindful of what we read, be mindful of where we're getting our sources of information, and do your best to look for the good in this really challenging time. And I
Yes.
know that that sounds really odd, but here's the deal. When we can look for the good, what does it do? It puts us in a state of gratitude, and the more that we can be grateful for what we have, the more we will actually have over time. If we actually focus on what we don't want, such as losing our homes, losing our businesses, or any of those things, well, the more we focus on that, we actually put ourselves in the vibrational state that could result in that coming to fruition. How do we
Yes.
stop it? We stop it with ourselves. We are grateful that right now our business is moving forward, even though it looks different. We're grateful for the opportunity to be here today and to speak positivity and inspiration to people, right? We are the ones that can reunite together and rise up. And as a result, we all become stronger and we all become more resilient. This is an opportunity for us to grow and shine.
Absolutely. We should all aim to do something that we may have not done in a long time, or we may have had a vision or a desire even to do that. Just go ahead and do it so that by the time all of these challenging situations end, we become a better version of ourselves emerging at the other end. Consider this like a tunnel. We're moving through it. All of us are there inside of it. And the light is somewhere shining out there.
Absolutely.
If we can just keep moving forward
And
and emerge at the other end, we will be winners. We will be going somewhere. We will be coming out as better versions of ourselves. And by the way, keep moving forward is the tagline of my company. It's actually the motto of my life. I thought it would be a good idea to just keep it as a tagline of my company also. so,
yeah, keep moving forward and stay present, right?
yes,
So in states like this, our minds can drift off to a state of worry and a state of fear, thinking about the future, what unfolds, right? And I encourage people, is that focus on the future that you want for your life and for your family's life, right? Focus on that vision, and continue to every day just be grateful for this moment and this moment and keep taking one step further. Eleanor Roosevelt has a beautiful quote that that I love, and she was the first lady um, many many years ago, and it's like do something each day that scares you. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I'm here before you today. I haven't had a haircut in 5 months, and I'm like, and I'm scared about how I look, and it's like, what, that doesn't matter. That doesn't
Right.
matter. What matters is that we connect. What matters is that we love one another. Um, and I would say that one more thing is that, you know, we do not know what's going to happen in the next minute or the next second. So the more we can be grateful for what we have, and the more that we can show love for ourselves and others, I promise you, your life will be, you'll feel enlivened. You will, and more opportunities will begin to emerge, and you
Yes.
really will go into a thriving state. We've started in our country, things are starting to open up a little bit, and our stock market is starting to surge back up again. And it's like it's a breath of fresh air. It's things are starting to progress, and there are going to be bumpy days for sure, but we can do this.
Yes. There are no other options. We have to do this, and let us do it with positivity. Let us do it with resilience. Let us do it with patience, responsibility, and lots of love and affection for the humankind as such. Uh, I read something in your book, which is a definition of fear, which I really liked.
Mhm.
So, fear can be either forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. That's
So the
absolutely phenomenal.
the irony here is this: I told you in the beginning, I do not like long distance running. Um, and so most of my life, so I had trauma as a child, and most people don't know this, but I suffered with a lot of fear and panic and anxiety most of my life. Growing up, teenage years, and into adulthood. Um, and so I worked really hard, actually, to create success in my life in hopes that it would break through of the fear, and it wasn't lasting. And so
It
the
was it was
bombings,
a very it was a very bad incident that happened. Would you like to talk about it, or I would
yeah,
quickly about
absolutely. You know,
just tell us a little bit about that incident also as a child?
Yeah, as a child, I was sexually assaulted by a man, and two women observed. And in that moment, and nobody came to my rescue. I didn't know these people. Um, and in that moment, I made it mean that I couldn't trust anyone. So, I lived my life from that point forward, like I couldn't trust anyone. So, I had a lot of people in my life, but I always kept them at arm's length. I would manipulate the conversations and dominate conversations so that people wouldn't know anything about that. Because the truth is, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, all of those things. And, as I got older, I realized I was carrying this baggage that was literally weighing me down, and it was impacting my life. And I can tell you right now that that is, you've got to be, I had to be willing to let that go to be able to rise above it and move forward. And eventually I did. And here's the thing: the bombings happen, and of course I was, swimming in terrifying fear. I wouldn't leave my house except to go to a doctor's appointment or a practitioner's appointment. I withdrew from the world. And so, but in those moments is when I really, really began to look at fear as, up until that point, I was living my life as something, I had to, I was running from fear. And And guess what? It caught up to me. It caught up to me. I couldn't outrun
has,
it.
it has a way of doing that.
So it caught up to me. And, and so now I had to look fear square in the eye, and I had to deal with, what would people think of me if I, were to talk about this? Are people going to look at me differently? Are they going to think of me differently? I had to work through all of those fears and doubts of my own self-image, because I had portrayed myself as this, strong, successful woman on the outside who always looked good. And on the inside, you know, I was just struggling to get by day to day, and I was barely keeping it together. And so the bombings blew me open, um, and I was left shattered. But from shattered pieces, we can put them back together and create a beautiful mosaic. I say, like, it's beautiful and perfectly imperfect mosaic. Something I learned in Japanese culture after the bombings. When something breaks in their culture, they don't discard it, they don't throw it away, they don't look down upon it. Here's what they do. They actually will put it back together with gold. So now that broken, shattered, whatever it is now actually has more value. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So what if this experience that we're living through now is actually an opening, an awakening for us to rise up again? It is literally the catalyst to get us to pursue whatever we've been longing to pursue. But we tend to, as human beings, we tend to gravitate to safety. We want to feel good, we want to feel comfortable. Well, you know what I say? Get comfortable feeling uncomfortable,
Yes,
because that's how
yes.
we grow.
That's so very imperfectly perfect that you just make a mosaic and grow. Whatever it is, it is. Uh, just just make the most of it.
Yeah,
It's at least something. It's always better than nothing. One step
absolutely.
forward. So, Jennifer, just tell us a little bit about your holistic wellness journey. How did
So,
that?
yeah, my
Yeah.
holistic work. So my holistic wellness journey started with chiropractic, which wasn't new to me. I will say that chiropractic was something I had done because I was active in sports, and so I often would go for adjustments. So, in the beginning, it started out with chiropractic care because I actually had severe spinal injuries. Um, and then I also worked with a therapist and did some immersion therapy, um, to deal with the I had severe PTSD. And so and it was to be able to process and deal with the overwhelming thoughts and feelings and emotions that I had at that time. And then I was led to a technique called brain integration treatment, something I'd never heard of before. But a friend of mine, and at the time I had no um, ability to be able to research this stuff. The old me would have researched this and, to learn about it. But I didn't have the ability to do that at the time. And so I just trusted this friend who had, near and dear to me and who I respect. And um, she actually gifted me with an appointment, and I showed up. And for me, what happened was it was as if the practitioner released the pressure valve from my physical body, and I had like this release. And my body, I had so many, endorphins flooding through my body from all the fear and the terror that I had experienced. And so for me, I had instantaneous results in that first session. So that led me on a journey of doing more treatment. From there, I went into sound therapy, light therapy, and all different types of energy medicine. I did some work with this wonderful woman, Dr. Deborah Sandella, who uh, was a nurse and trained therapist as well, psychology. And she created this technique that allows you to go in and reprogram, if you will, disturbing thoughts that, are within your subconscious mind. And that was a very powerful experience for me. So think of it like the journey that I went on really was like upgrading my system, right? So taking the old software and upgrading it to new software, if you will,
Right.
and rewiring my brain and physical body for wellness and for healing. And so that's literally what happened is, I went on this journey. And I will say one thing about sound and light therapy. So sound therapy, and I did all different kinds of modalities. You can read more about it in my book, Shattered.
Yes.
But what does sound do? So think of it like a musical instrument. I did not grow up playing musical instruments, but those that have, let's say the guitar. Well, you have a tuning device to tune the guitar, right? Or just like a piano gets tuned. Our bodies actually are energy and their vibration. And so we can't hear it per se, or the average person can't hear it. But every time, we wake up, we're vibrating energy. Actually, it happens in our sleep too. But if our bodies are out of tune, that's when disease and illness can set in. And so sound therapy is a way to harmonize the body on all levels and to get it into its natural operating state where it's vibrating and operating in harmony and in balance.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Actually, I do understand the vibrational energy concept quite a lot, uh, to the extent that I can explain it to other people. My mentors have always told me that unless you're able to explain it, like Einstein said, to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And
Mm.
I think you have explained it very well. After all, our bodies are energy, nothing else. And break it down to the levels of uh, subatomic particles. They are minuscule mass particles vibrating at a very, very high speed, and that produces energy. So, the end of it, it's all energy. Whatever the chairs that we are sitting on, the air that we are breathing, this computer that we are talking through, everything is energy. And the structure is just the same. And for that matter, even the coronavirus, so many times I think about this. The coronavirus, which is wreaking havoc in the world, all over, it's like everywhere. After all, it's just a molecule. A virus is not even a living creature. It's not like a bacteria. It's in between living and non-living state. It's actually a molecule. Human civilizations, yeah, we are ages old. We have so much of technology, so much of science, and so much of knowledge available to us. We can't be defeated by just a molecule. It's preposterous even to think about it. And
Yeah.
at least that's how I think about it. And that is an upliftment thought to me. That makes me get over all that media nonsense which is going on and just feeding us with so much of negativity all the time. So I
No, and
understand what you're talking
and,
about. It's
and
very
I will say I want to be really clear here, right? So on the we all have emotions, and I feel like every single emotion that we have is a gift, right? So I don't perceive them as good or bad. I used to, but I
yes,
don't any longer. So fear is actually a good thing, right? We do not want
yes,
to lose sight of fear because fear literally, if you feel fear, you've got to stop and ask yourself, am I in danger? And there are times where you may be, and you've
oh,
got to act
absolutely,
accordingly. But
yes,
if you're not in immediate danger, then you got to stop and ask yourself, what is it that I'm really fearful of? What am I worried about? And oftentimes it's something that is, that you think may happen in the future. And that's
yes,
when you can shift it. And so, I want to be clear, like, anger, that's another thing. The key here is to allow the feeling to emerge and pass through you. Observe it so that you can return to a state, your natural state. Our natural state is love. It is peace in our natural ability. If you're not feeling that on a regular basis, well, that's an opportunity for you to look within and look at your life and assess. And it's time to make some shifts and some change.
Absolutely. I think that sums it all. It's we have to learn to forgive certain things, forget certain things, get over our emotional suppressions that we've been feeling all along. Just
Yeah,
release everything.
just release it.
Because after all, like you said, energy is neither negative nor positive, and emotions are energy, nothing more than that. Energy cannot be negative or positive, and
It just
it's
is.
not.
It just
It is
is.
what it is. Actually, it's
And so the question is, how do you adapt
yes,
and be flexible and move through it? And and if people are worried about getting the virus, what do I say to people? Raise your vibration, keep your vibration strong. How do you do that? Eat well, sleep well, move your body, do some sort of physical exercise. It could be yoga, it could be running, it could be walking, hiking, anything, right? Just keep moving. And I'd say practice gratitude, continue gratitude. Show love to yourself and your loved ones. That is the best medicine right now. Now let's be clear, I'm not a doctor and I'm not saying that you may not get it. But even if you were to get it, chances are if you are taking really good care of yourself and your body, that you will recover from it quickly.
absolutely. And I want to show your book to everyone. I have it on my Kindle device. I'm such a technology oriented person. I have it here. I hope everybody can see it. This is a book called Shattered by Jennifer Kauffman. I think all of you should go and get this book. It is an amazing book. It is a journey of Jennifer's life, of resilience, holistic wellness, getting over trauma, and living a phenomenal life. That's what life is all about. It has several components of so many things in it. That is a composite which is called life. So Shattered is a book which everybody should go and get it and read it. Not just keep it, read it. A lot of people just get a book and don't read it. I think it's a phenomenal book to go through.
Well,
And
and for those people that don't like to read, I made it super simple, right? Because I like to digest, I like to boil things down into the simplest point, and I like to help people create results that, as quickly as possible. So the
yes,
book actually is a super easy read, but if I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. You can go to the very end of the last chapter, and I literally summarize
yes,
each of the chapters, and it's a guidebook for the reader. So, this is something you can apply in your life and take the tools that I learned over the course of 4 years and apply them to your life. See what works, make adjustments, and I promise you, your life will be better for it. And you can order the
absolutely.
book on Amazon.
Yes, absolutely. It is available on Amazon. I got it on my Kindle. And Jennifer, I want to give you an offer also as we are live. I am launching a portal which is absolutely ready now. It's a an online platform for online courses and audiobooks. It will be launched very soon. We are just updating the content, doing some last minute beta testing on it. I would offer you to please upload your book in the audio version, record it in your own voice, and just upload it for our audiences. You can sell it through the platform, you can give it out for free, whichever way you want to work through. That will be a great, great help to our audience and to all of us, to the entire world. I think everyone should go through this. And
Well, thank you for that beautiful opportunity. I accept, uh, so
I'll,
thank
I'll
you.
let you know as soon as the platform is up. I will let you know. I'll give you a link to it. You'll just have to go and record the book and upload it in your own voice. That's just thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here. I think it is just wonderful to have you here. Any last minute notes if you want to add something for our viewers, for the people who are going to view it at a later time, if you just want to say some some
Yeah,
last minute
I would
advice,
love to.
message, whatever. Just
I'd love to say one thing, and which is, you know, I told you at the very beginning that I do not like long distance running. And when I was in my own meditation practice, I was asking for a sign of what it would take for me to come full circle in my journey. And the answer I got, I did not like. And that was for me to go run 26.2 miles of the Boston Marathon, something I never could have imagined I would do. And I did. So here's the
that's
thing, if I can do the impossible, so can you. And I promise that for me and for you, whatever that is for you, when you take the action to do it. Now, for me, it was challenging, very challenging, and so worth it, so rewarding. So don't give up, stay focused on your vision, make sure it's an empowering, inspiring vision, and ensure that you surround yourself with people that are like minded, uplifting, and inspiring, and who will be your biggest cheerleaders.
fantastic. That's a phenomenal message to share, Jennifer. I wish everybody goes ahead and incorporates it in their life. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much for being here. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And just a little message for the viewers and the people who are going to view it later on. If you like this content, if you like the kind of content we are creating here, please go ahead, subscribe to the channel, like and share it, because your encouragement means a lot to us, and it will help us go on creating even better content in the times to come. We'll keep upgrading ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.